What's going on, guys? I am Joe Deckelmeyer with ScreenRant. We're at WonderCon 2025 in beautiful Anaheim, California. I am here with a very important project. We're going to be talking about Defiant, the story of Robert Smalls, which is a very, very important story that I think everybody should know about. But the last time we spoke, guys, we were in San Diego. We've made some progress. It wouldn't be a comic convention without actual comic books. But let's talk about Defiant, because you guys are putting comics back in these conventions. I saw the first 3 issues you guys had, the first cover art. Absolutely incredible artwork. Talk to me about the process and where we are with everything.
Well, actually, we are, the whole plan was we would release issues as they came out, get everybody kind of, used to the idea. The comic books have done really well. They're bestsellers in 4 categories. And people are really enjoying them. We're planning to release the first 4 as a graphic novel on Juneteenth. And so that's where we are. The wonderful people at Stranger Comics, Sebastian Jones and Daryl May and Josh Corzon are doing the books, and they just look magnificent. Artwork by Sean Damian Hill, who's incredible, and covers by Ray Anthony Height, the king of all. And man, I tell you, it couldn't be better. It is a movie on paper.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that a lot of fans come out and they read some of these books and they automatically start envisioning what that would look like on screen.
Yep.
I want to talk about what we can possibly be getting on screen with Legion M. You guys have been grinding hard. It's a really fan-driven studio. Talk to me about Legion M's involvement and in the project, but also them championing a project like this.
Well, it was sort of a dream for Legion M, the whole idea behind having a fan-owned entertainment company. The most perfect situation would be if the community that is investing actually brought a project to Legion M. The normal process is Legion M, we field, as a development executive, we field projects, and then we go to the community to say, hey, what do you think? This time, they came to us with this ridiculously incredible meme that said, okay, there have been, 10 Spider-Man, 11 billion Fast and Furious. There's this guy, Robert Smalls, his resume, just go straight down it. Civil War, he's enslaved on a ship. He steals that ship. He goes to Lincoln. Lincoln says, oh man, if we had, a contingent of men like you, we could change the course of the Civil War. Hold my beer. He does that. And, involved in 17 naval battles. I mean, you just keep going on and on and on. And, for us, that's the dream. The dream is as an important story that a community brings to light.
Yep. And
then assemble the team of teams. Mm-hmm. And that's, I feel like it's just sort of happened. And, we've had a lot of stuff happen. We've had COVID happen. We've had Writers Guild strikes.
Guild strike.
California fires.
We've had changes in administration. There's been a lot of stuff. And yet, every day it feels like there's greater and greater momentum. So from Legion M's perspective, this is all happening at exactly the right time. To have the graphic novel come out on Juneteenth is apropos. And, with San Diego just a little bit beyond that, we're hoping to have some major news there.
We're hoping to hear some major news. But, before we get to San Diego, Robert Smalls is really like the first superhero that actually existed in real life. Marvin, for you, coming onto a project like this and being a producer on a project like this, what are some of the things for fans that may not know who Robert Smalls is? What are some of the things of his story that you want to tell to get fans involved in his story?
The thing about Robert Smalls, like you said, early on when they brought me the project and asked me to come along, I saw the heroism in him and the reality in it. I've been blessed to be a part of projects that are, rooted in fantasism and sci-fi and, first black superhero family, first black Spider-Man. Okay, but now we have, like you said, we have a true African-American superhero and really just an American superhero who did real things. When you look at his life, commandeering a Confederate naval ship alone and hijacking it and surrendering it to the Union Army is some really superhero stuff.
Absolutely.
But then even beyond that, you know, the things that he did, you know, post that, being the first black man to be responsible for enlisting black men to fight in the Civil War and just in military in general. Then, you know, opening up, starting schools in the school district, the public school district. First newspaper, printing press, and then ultimately going into politics and winning, you know, being the first black man in Congress several times, are things that, again, I think we still benefit from today. That's
dying of old age.
Yeah, and that
That was
process,
the
and
amazing
dying of
part.
old age, not getting.
With a you know, bounty on his head his entire life, he passed away from old age.
So those things are heroic all the way around, and like I say again, it really changed the trajectory of not just, you know, black Americans, but Americans in general.
Absolutely. Now, not only are we getting a stunning story, but you're rocking the shirt back there. That's just a taste of the artwork. I want to talk to you about that for a second, because when I was paging through the book a little bit, something that stood out was this beautiful artwork. Talk to me about some of the artists that you have on this project, or the artists that you have on this project, and the style that you guys are going for with the tone of the book.
Yeah, so I want to be up front. Like, as a producer, my role is to listen to these guys,
Sure.
and execute. Right? The job of a producer is is to actually have it be produced in one sentence.
Sure.
Right? So what that involved in this case with the art was talking to Rob, talking to Marvin, but mostly in this case, there was a hit list of artists that Rob was interested in getting, and at the top of the list was Nicholas Draper Ivey. And so my role was, Rob's like, yeah, I dropped him a note, I talked to him, he sounds like he, you know, might be wanting to be interested, and then, you know, I've got to go and close that out, right? And so once we got past that, then I really go back to trusting the creative process that Rob and team are establishing. So I think it would be really good for Rob to talk about, because I know the nuances of their back and forth, but you were there with Nicholas. Like, how did you guys land here?
Well, it's funny because, well, two things. One was when we first started, you know, I didn't know who to call, so I talked to Dennis Cohen, you know, god of all, comic book illustrators, and he suggested 4 names. I called all 4 guys. All 4 guys said yes, and I had actually been working with Nick on another project, an anime project, and his work, like, he'll just show up in the morning with 20 drawings that are amazing, you know, publishable stuff. And so I asked him if he wanted to do this. You know, fortunately, Chris was able to make the deal. And he just started creating just amazing artwork. You see the cover that'll be the cover of the graphic novel, as he's staring into camera. And it's funny, we talked about it, and I said, like, well, here's what I want his eyes to look like. And I sent him a picture of a lion. And then I sent him a picture of Bruce Lee. And then I sent him a picture of Muhammad Ali and you know, predators. And just like, this is a guy who has no fear. Sure. That is the look that he had in his eyes as a 23-year-old kid. And that's what I want kids, when they see the book, to see. This is what fearless looks like.
And when they read the book, is that going to be a taste of what they can get in the film?
Yes, absolutely. It should be one for one, basically, what you're going to see in the film. The graphic novels are basically proof of concept. Sure. You know, what we want to do is say that, like, look, you can tell a story like this. You know, so many of them, they're triggering. You know, there's just whips and chains and, you know, whatever, and at the end of it, like, oh boy, he's free, end of story. And so we wanted to do 2 things. One is we wanted to tell it inspirationally, and say that, well, you know, from humble beginnings, this guy did this thing, he freed his family, and then went on to do incredible things. And that's what's fun to me about Reconstruction, is that, like, doctors and lawyers and millionaires came out of these guys who had been slaves 3 years ago, you know, were captains of industry, you know, during Reconstruction. And then Jim Crow kicks in and all these guys went away. So the sadness is, yes, slavery, but also just the robbing of potential from all of these people, and hopefully that as sadness, is one thing that people will be left with.
Now, for Legion M, I just have to ask, we know that films now are a lot of films are really struggling at the box office, but we're seeing a lot of great stories told throughout series, especially historical stories told throughout a series on whatever streaming service you choose. Is the goal always going to be film, or because it seems like Robert Smalls did a ton in his life, and it feels like that's a lot for one movie. But with a series, it gives it a little bit room to breathe. Is it the goal always to be a film, or is a series on the table as well?
Listen, the goal is for people to learn about Robert Smalls, which is why the graphic novel is so critical and why we've had such outreach to the educational community. We want to see kids in cosplay as Robert Smalls at WonderCon. That's what we want. So however we get there, we know that, in this time, it's really hard to get people to pay attention to anything. So at this moment, we're really thinking feature film. We want to do this in the absolute best possible way, team with the best possible distributors, and get it out. And what happens after that? I mean, I think Rob's got it in to do a long-term series if that were to present itself, because there's so many other characters simultaneously with Robert Smalls, and you should talk about this for a minute because it's important.
Well, that was the thing. Like when we first started looking at it, there were a couple of books that were out there, and I read them all. And what I was finding was that nobody was telling the story that I wanted to tell, which was a story about a man trying to make a better life for his family. The other thing is that a lot of the stories, a lot of the history books, they are confined by what was provable.
Right.
The newspaper articles, the census data, and stuff like that. And Robert Smalls, being illiterate, he did not keep a journal. He did not write his own story. So I found that just by filling in the blanks, I was able to find a better story. And fortunately, we brought on Michael Bulwer Moore, who's a great-great-grandson of Robert Smalls, who was in the previous our previous interview. And so I would call him and say, "This is what I think happened. This is what all the history books says, but this is what I think happened." And he would go, "That's exactly what the story that my grandmother told me."
Wow!
And so that was great. So that is in there. And the other thing was just dealing with Dr. Maisha Aitman, who's a professor of Black history at Harvard, just talking to her, and I would say, like, well, who else was in Congress? And so she tells me this story, and she says, okay, well, here's two characters that I absolutely love. One was backyard preacher, slave, illiterate, super charismatic guy, loved by everybody. He becomes a congressman. Second guy who becomes a congressman is this kid who was, his father was the slave owner. And he looked so much like his father that everybody who came over went like, what's going on there? So he sends his kid to England to go to school. The kid becomes a lawyer, a prominent lawyer in England, and when slavery ends, he comes back to Charlotte and runs for Congress, and he and Robert and this other guy are there together. And man, that's a movie in itself.
Sure. And
so all these guys are just fantastic characters, and they fill out the, what exactly restoration was. And so, man, I'd love to tell all those stories.
I'd love to see all those stories.
Yes.
Well, and I just want to say, you think about what Lin Miranda did with Hamilton.
Sure.
And, that's the opportunity. That's, to me, is, how do we make this something that, people today can relate to and be inspired by, so that they can be, defiant.
I love that. I don't think there's a better way to end than that right there. I love seeing you guys. I love the progress you guys have been making, and I love that Legion M is fully behind this, and it's such a fantastic project that we want people to see. So you got to check out Defiant, learn about Robert Smalls. If you don't, I'm sure there's going to be a fantastic feature film that's going to tell you all about it. And hopefully we get a little bit more. We're so close to San Diego.
Yes.
So as soon as we get there, I'm hoping we have a big announcement from you guys.
There you go.
Thank you guys so much for stopping by our ScreenRant booth. You guys are incredible. Thank you.